The click came from the wrong direction. I'd been pressing myself against the wall for maybe 30 seconds, trying to remember which way I came in. My phone was face down in my pocket. I hadn't looked at it in 4 minutes. I know that because I checked after. The click came again, same mechanism, but closer. I want to tell you exactly what it sounded like. I will, but you have to understand something first. I was 17. That's the part I always want to skip because it makes everything that happened feel like a story about a stupid kid. Maybe it is. The mill sat on the east edge of town, old timber and corrugated steel that had been going to rust for most of my life. Everyone knew it. Nobody went in. That was the appeal. It wasn't my idea originally. Rich had found something on an explorer's forum, one of those sites where people post photos through the chain link fence and argue about asbestos. Someone had documented the mill 3 years before us. The post was mostly images, collapsed framing, graffiti older than we were, a hole in the roof the original poster had described as definitely not worth it. The last part was Rich's pitch. Definitely not worth it. I told him I'd think about it. I drove there alone on a Saturday in October, which I understand is the wrong part of that sentence. Getting in wasn't difficult. A section of corrugated siding had separated from its frame on the north wall, a gap about 18 inches wide at the bottom. I went through sideways. Inside, the mill was large and wrong in the way abandoned buildings usually are. The proportions feel off when there's no human activity to scale them against. Old belt systems, warped floors, light coming through holes in the roof and columns. I found the shaft 40 minutes in. It was in the back section, collapsed behind a grain hopper that had pulled far enough from the wall to press behind. The opening was in the floor, framed in poured concrete. Clean edges, intentional, not a collapse. Someone built this. The steel door that should have covered it was folded back against the wall, hinges intact. Below it, a fixed steel ladder descending into dark. The space around the opening was different from the rest of the mill, swept clean, no debris around the frame. The concrete looked newer than the surrounding floor. I sat on the edge for a while, looked at the ladder. Finally, I went down. The first section felt engineered. Poured walls, uniform ceiling height, a leveled floor, electric conduit running along one wall with no lights attached. Somewhere, at some point, there had been more lights. My flashlight was good for the time, 1,000 lumens. The beam didn't reach the ceiling in a few places. Couldn't tell if the ceiling had receded or if something else was up there. The tunnel branched twice. I marked my turns, folded piece of gum wrapper pressed into a crack in the wall the way I'd read about. The marks were small. I told myself I'd see them on the way back. After the second branch, the construction changed. The walls went from poured concrete to rough stone and packed earth, shored up with old timber. Like the engineered section ended and something older continued beneath and beyond it. I checked my GPS, but there was no signal. I was maybe 30, 50 feet underground. I didn't know which direction I was facing anymore. I kept going because there was nothing to turn back from yet. That's the part that's hard to explain. Nothing happened, just felt like something was about to. The first click stopped me before I understood why I had stopped. It wasn't an impact, not the building settling above, not dripping, not a creak. Not any of the sounds old structures make when weight shifts. It was a mechanism, a spring under tension, released cleanly and then caught. I stood still. My beam was pointed at the tunnel floor in front of me. A pause, long enough that I almost convinced myself I'd imagined it. Then the second click, smaller, or the same size but closer, from the left breach, I thought, or the right. The acoustics made it all bilateral. I know what a camera shutter sounds like. I grew up watching my dad load a Nikon at Thanksgiving. Mechanical, manual, the kind that requires you to advance the film yourself afterward. The kind that makes that specific sound because a mirror flips, because a curtain opens, and because someone decided to take a picture. Someone down there was taking pictures in the dark. I did not move for approximately 90 seconds. I know because I counted. Click. It was closer. I want you to understand what that means. It wasn't a ghost. Not something I can't explain. It was a person who came down here prepared, who brought equipment, who can work in the dark or who doesn't need to see, and who is documenting something one frame at a time. And when the clicking started moving toward me, I understood that I might be what they were documenting. I started back the way I came, slowly. I tried to be calm about it. I was navigating, looking for my gum wrapper markers. I found one, and then the tunnel split into 3 passages I didn't remember splitting before, and I looked at all 3 and none of them had markers. I stopped, tried to count my turns. I got to 4 and then lost the sequence. Click. Took the left passage, a dead end, flat earth wall, no tool marks, same as every other wall down there. I went back. Click. I took the right passage. It curved, widened. I thought I recognized a particular overhang in the timber framing, and then it curved back again, and I didn't. And then I heard something different. Not a click. A bolt moving in a housing. The specific, unmistakable sound of a latch engaging. It was a door closing. I turned my flashlight off. I don't know why I did that. I stood there in complete dark and listened, and the clicking had stopped. Just the latch and then nothing. I turned my light back on. It shows the center passage, and I walked quickly, and I didn't run because I knew that if I ran, I would fall, and then I'd be on the ground in the dark. The passage narrowed, a section that I recognized. I turned sideways and moved through it. Somewhere in that passage, something touched my left forearm. Not the wall. The wall was on my right. My left arm was extended, light forward. It wasn't a grip, a pressure, something dry, tracking along my sleeve as I moved. One slow motion in one direction, and then nothing. I came out into the wider tunnel. The ladder was in front of me. At the base of it, the steel door, the one folded back against the wall that I'd come down, was shut. Not latched, but closed. There was no draft. I'd been underground for over an hour. I opened it, I climbed, I got out. I drove home, showered, and sat on the edge of my bed until the house went quiet. I didn't tell Rich. I didn't tell my parents. There was nothing to tell that didn't sound like a story a scared kid made up in the dark. I checked the forum once a few weeks later. The original post was still there. Someone had commented below it. No username, no account history, 1 month before I went in. Just 2 words. Stay out. I've looked for any record of that shaft since. Construction permits, mining surveys, former ownership of the property. I found nothing that explains a poured concrete frame beneath a decommissioned flour mill, clean edged and maintained with electric conduit and no lights. I don't know what was down there. I don't know what it was or who it was. I think about the clicking. I think about what it means that whoever was down there came prepared, came with film, came in the dark and didn't need light, and was working calmly, 1 frame at a time. I don't know what they were photographing. I don't know if they got what they came for. I don't go back to that part of town anymore.